Multiplayer horror games are still a relatively new thing. Despite the subgenre's surge in popularity after 2020, they seem to be somewhat polarizing to players. I mean, think about every tense experience you've had playing horror games. Maybe you narrowly avoided the gaze of a predator, or maybe you used your very last bullet to defeat a frenzied zombie. No matter what memories stand out to you, I highly doubt the scariest ones come from multiplayer horror games. Popular games in this genre like Dead by Daylight and Repo aren't even considered to be scary, and it's obvious why that is. You're simulating being hunted by monsters with your silly best friends.
Your girlfriend
you
is
know what?
sweet and pretty.
Take this, Lily.
Damn.
You don't really fret too much about the murderous lady down the hall when your buddy Jeff is beatboxing over the mic. Despite my gripes with the genre, I've received several requests to make a video on the Outlast trials. Being a huge fan of Outlast, and also being a major multiplayer horror skeptic, I wasn't really sure what the Outlast trials would have in store. After several hours with this game, both multiplayer and single player, I found some very interesting things that you guys simply have to see.
But that's nothing compared to what yours is, eh? I'll just grind out all those secrets and rotten bits so they can put in something better!
First off, we need to discuss exactly what this game is and how it works in order to understand how it stands out within its own subgenre. For starters, it's a multiplayer horror game that's organized not unlike Fortnite. Now stay with me here. This is actually one of my favorite parts of the game. In the Outlast trials, you can play through a list of missions, or trials, and earn in-game currency while you do so. This currency can be exchanged for cosmetics and even permanent upgrades in the lobby. Outlast is also a very story-heavy series, so you may wonder how they work a plot into a multiplayer-centered title. When you start the game, you get an intro cutscene showing that you were picked up off the street by the Murkoff Corporation and then forced to play in a series of disturbing tests and trials. What's also similar to Fortnite is that the story and lore are built upon with each update. For instance, when I started playing this game, there's a plot thread happening that involved a rogue tester hatching an escape plan from the facility. If you played enough trials to earn a set number of special currency, you could play this level to quote-unquote earn your freedom. Though I never got to attempt this mission in question, the next update furthered the plot with the Murkoff Corporation killing this rogue tester and leaving her body hanging in the player lobby. It's really nice to see this game working in a story that runs deeper than just being a mindless grunt testing for an evil organization. This is where the similarities to other multiplayer games end though. There really isn't a whole lot quite like the Outlast trials. Unlike similar games, you don't get thrust into one fixed world, nor do you get thrust into procedurally generated levels, although there is a mode where you can do this. You actually have a growing list of trials to play through that are mostly unique. You heard that correctly. You basically have a whole level select menu along with some extra game modes to sink your teeth into with your friends. These trials all function like missions in Outlast with the added twist of needing to work with others to complete them. Now, the contents of each trial vary pretty greatly. Each one has several disturbing objectives that must be completed one after the other to achieve whatever twisted goal the Murkoff Corporation wants to accomplish. Oftentimes you'll be tasked with completing puzzles and finding keys, all while being chased by a whole host of psychos. The one constant with each mission is that, once you complete every objective, you need to run yourself back to the start of the mission and leave the way you came in. This is often the most stressful part of the game, and I mean that in the best way possible. After these trials, you receive a grade for your performance to encourage replayability, and you get points to use on permanent upgrades like more stamina and inventory space. It's also worth mentioning that there's this fun little lobby in the game that you can play chess, arm wrestle, and play a tennis minigame with other players. It's kind of difficult to explain this all because the concept of a multiplayer Outlast game is a strange one. But basically, you pick a trial, you complete it, earn currency based on how efficiently you play, and then you use that currency on anything you want. It's quite an enjoyable gameplay loop. It's a well-organized system, and that fits perfectly for the type of game that this is. Now that we understand the setup for this game, we need to discuss how the Outlast trials nails multiplayer horror.
Yeah. Come on, try again. Come on, come on. Where you going? Where you going? Bring that over here.
The Outlast trial stays faithful to stable mechanics in the series, but it adds quite a layer of interactivity even without considering the multiplayer aspect. The series staples are present, like using night vision in dark areas and primarily being limited to running and hiding. Some welcomed additions to the gameplay include an inventory system that requires you to use your resources as effectively as possible. This is an inclusion that I hope is carried over into the next single-player Outlast game. You start off with 3 inventory slots, and you need to carefully decide between carrying batteries, healing items, and throwable items. Yes, indeed, in this Outlast game, you have the ability to either throw glass bottles or bricks to distract enemies and lure them away from you. More interestingly, your only method of self-defense is throwing one of these items at enemies to stagger them, giving you a chance to escape. This is one more method to defend yourself that was seen in previous games, where you had no method. This provides the player a lot of depth in how they want to navigate these trials without feeling too powerful. Items are unfortunately somewhat plentiful in the environments, but I feel that this is a necessary evil since these items are intended to be picked up by up to 4 players. The more people I played with, the more difficult it was to scavenge for items, and I love that. The other major gameplay change is the implementation of a sanity system. This mechanic feels somewhat underdeveloped. If you walk into a trap or get caught by a specific enemy, you'll lose anywhere between 1 to 3 bars of sanity. With 1 or 2 bars of sanity gone, you'll begin hallucinating and getting jump scared by creatures that aren't real. When you lose all of your sanity, a ghost called the Skinner Man will ruthlessly begin hunting you down until you take an antidote. If sanity was lost more organically from losing night vision in a dark place or being chased by psychos, I'd probably enjoy this more. As it is, recovering sanity can feel like a chore. This is a lot to account for, but when you're playing with others, the chaos and depth on display here is super fun. Throwing items to distract enemies that are closing in on your pal or having a teammate assist you while you're being attacked encourages serious teamwork. Within the trials themselves, you'll have to solve puzzles either alone or with friends to progress and reach the end. These are actually some of the most unique tasks and puzzles I've ever had to complete in a horror game. These tasks don't ask you to piece together information from riddles to form an answer, rather, they test your workload management, teamwork, and situational awareness skills. I absolutely love this, and it's a nice change of pace from the norm. While some of these puzzles are unique to their own levels, other puzzles get reused across trials, which can be kinda lame. For instance, you'll often come across gates that'll only open once you've interacted with specific marked terminals. The locked gate itself tells you which symbols must be present on the terminals you interact with. Once you've hunted down these symbols, the gate will open. Sometimes they'll replace terminals with keys or other small changes, but it's basically the same puzzle at its core. Fortunately, a majority of the other puzzles are unique. Now, this is where the Outlast trial succeeds where other multiplayer horror games fail. In spite of the chaos that ensues in these trials, you never really start laughing with your friends about it. The atmosphere and gameplay is crafted with such sophistication that you actually feel like a worm in a twisted experiment. The environments here have much more color than any Outlast game has had previously, and despite that, it's still so oppressive and gloomy. It doesn't end there, though. The missions the players are tasked with completing in these trials are some of the most disturbing and demoralizing things I've ever seen. I won't go too deep into detail since this content is beyond graphic, but most trials involve torturing a person in the cruelest way imaginable. It's difficult to laugh even with your best friends when you get subjected to this kind of stuff. It's the graphic nature of this content that reels in players from getting too silly and maintaining a sense of horror. Luckily, you still have your silly moments in this game. Being in the lobby is always a good time, and you get to make your own fun with friends in between trials. One thing my friends would always do is run into any door that I was walking towards so I couldn't use it. I don't even know how they did this. I'd be right up against the door and they'd still get in before me. There's a brilliant balance here between playtime and serious gameplay, and I really love that. This is a far cry from the esports style Dead by Daylight, and the fear stays fresh longer than the admirable Phasmophobia. There is one gripe I have with this game, though. This would not be an Outlast game without memorable hunter enemies. The Outlast Trials certainly delivers on this. There's currently 3 main hunters in this game: Mother Gooseberry, Leland Cole, and Franco Barbie. Leland Cole is sadly somewhat generic and not all that scary. Mother Gooseberry has a brilliant design and is certainly the most memorable of the bunch. When she attacks you, not only will you take massive damage, but you'll start bleeding too. This can only be healed with a bandage, not with any other health item, so you always want to make sure you have one on standby. Coil and Mother Gooseberry both suffer from the same problem though. They can be easily quote-unquote trained, not unlike Call of Duty Zombies. When one of your friends are carrying a heavy package, it's actually advantageous to train these foes in order to help your teammates progress the trial. This is one gripe I have with this game. Leading around what are supposed to be fearsome predators is not only efficient, but it really detracts from how scary they are. Luckily, the last variant, Franco Barbie, is totally immune to this. Barbie is unique. This psycho has a sawed-off shotgun that he can shoot you with from quite far away, making him impossible to train. When he shows up, you have no choice but to run away, and he always feels like a genuine threat because of this. I hope that when new variants get added, they function as uniquely as Barbie, and I hope that they aren't so easy to lure away. I hope they keep up with the creativity and perhaps give the next hunter the ability to camouflage or teleport or something unique like that. In addition to these main hunters, you have your big and small grunts that patrol these trials in search of you. You also have minor variants that come out of elevator doors from time to time. For instance, the Pitcher will come out occasionally throwing Molotov cocktails everywhere. You also have the Pusher, which must be taken very seriously, because if he catches you, he'll spray you with this hallucinogenic gas that instantly causes the Skinner Man to hunt you down. The most creative one is the Imposter. Occasionally, an enemy will appear that looks identical to you or your teammate. If you get too close to this imposter, they'll stab you. You'll occasionally have situations where 3 different enemies close in on your location, and you'll simply have to scatter and return when the coast is clear. Overall, this enemy cast is awesome. There are some strokes of genius here that put this game above all the other multiplayer horror games that I've played. If Leland Coil and Mother Gooseberry were less exploitable, I'd call it perfect.
Right, Joe.
Though this is a multiplayer horror game, it can be played alone. You're probably thinking that since this game is designed with multiple people playing first, that playing alone would be boring. Well, you'd be kind of right for thinking that, but not entirely. Playing alone seems to fix the issue I had with the enemies, but it adds a few of its own problems. As you can imagine, when you play single player, you can't train one of the chasers and complete the trial simultaneously. Well, I guess you could train them, but you'd be wasting your time since you wouldn't have anyone working on the objective while you do so. You can't use any workload management skills, which causes you to play more methodically. But at the same time, this is a double-edged sword. The objectives can feel like busy work sometimes when they were so clearly designed with multiple players in mind. One of my favorite trials in this game tasks players with carrying labeled boxes from a storage room down to several conveyor belts, all while finding keys. Dividing up the workload is intuitive with friends and makes for a unique puzzle. Playing alone, however, it can sometimes feel like mindless labor. You gotta find the right box, then place it on the conveyor belt, pick up the box at a point later down the belt's path, then find a key, then rinse and repeat. Fortunately, the more threatening enemies are when playing alone keeps this from getting too boring, but it certainly doesn't help make these puzzles more engaging. Personally, I truly had fun playing this game solo, but I can't deny that at various points during trials, I start feeling some fatigue. The Outlast Trials is a standout horror game. I can't get over how difficult it must be to craft a game that stays scary even while playing with friends. I'm thankful that this game finds a way to stay fun while playing solo as well, even if some of the gameplay aspects begin lacking in this mode. Some of the enemies leave a lot to be desired functionally, but when it all comes together, it's wonderful. With a few more good updates, this game will be perfect. The gameplay additions here are such a breath of fresh air. I sincerely hope the next single-player Outlast game has an inventory system and throwable items, just like in this game. I really didn't think it was possible to make a multiplayer horror game scary, but the Outlast Trials has proved me wrong. I highly recommend this one, especially if you're an Outlast fan. Please let me know what you think about this game in the comments, and I hope to see you guys in the trials soon.